We have to define what the real debate is about. This isn't about ending student clubs or banning books. We also want diverse schools that are inclusive. The difference is we don't want to pretend to do these things at the expense of students and families and their individual freedoms. Respectful Learning Environment Policy 604.4 reads, the board is committed to providing a safe and respectful learning environment and to providing an education that respects all students and all families. We trusted that the district leaders were pursuing this goal, yet we have recently found out that in the summer of 2019, the district's culturally responsive teaching support team held full-day monthly planning meetings to discuss how to infuse culturally responsive training throughout the district. The training subcommittee recommended the schools and teachers use the Teaching Tolerance webinar series from the Southern Poverty Law Center. Some topics included, what is white privilege anyway? Fun social justice activities for elementary students. Let's talk teaching Black Lives Matters. As a school board, you are elected to point both policy and an enormous budget to developing academic skills and knowledge of all of our kids. We expect you to be straightforward about this and not hide these things and bring them out to the public. Show them what you're actually doing.
3 school board members are working to keep divisive ideologies in school. If they don't compromise, there's a risk the district could shut down. They want to give messages to kids of color that I doubt they would ever give their own kids. I doubt they would ever tell their kids that all systems from schools, the workplace, environment, and healthcare are stacked against them. This was in one of my kids' 5th grade assignment. Another one of my kids was told that pollution targets Black people, that even the air is racist. It's crazy to tell kids that systems are all stacked against them, then expect them to be motivated to learn. And that might explain why only 40% of kids of color in this school district can read and write. I doubt that they would ever tell their kids that the majority of their classmates hate them, yet the schools tell kids of color that all white people are intrinsically racist, and that everything from complimenting their hair to mispronouncing their name is a microaggression. Telling this to kids of color really harms their relationships, and I can tell you as a person of color, I was taught in college by my white professor that all my white friends hated me and the world was racist, and I started distancing myself from my friends. It took me a long time to get out of that mindset. I'm here to tell you that the messages you give kids matter. It affects their lives. The social justice movement depends on the downtrodden Black person narrative. It doesn't want them to believe the truth, that the chains are gone, and that their successes do not depend on white people. Since schools are determined to spend so much time promoting this hopelessness and division, and given that less than half of all kids are proficient in reading and writing, the logical question is, how bad would it really be if the school was shut down?
This is my 15th year with the district working in the preschool program, and as a requirement of my job, I have attended many mandatory staff development meetings. Some of this training has become incredibly offensive and divisive as the ideologies of critical race theory, diversity, equity, and inclusion have made their way into the mix. In one such meeting, the facilitator asked the participants to describe themselves on paper. Those of us who didn't happen to use our ethnicity as part of our description were told that that was evidence of our white privilege and our racist biases. When I brought my concerns about the hostility and unprofessionalism of this subject matter to the attention of my supervisor, I was laughed at and dismissed. As evidenced in a 2019 email, district staff members with influence over professional development can and have been actively and aggressively using their positions to advance a very specific agenda for years. In this email, district staff stated, "We have been working to infuse race and questions about power and privilege into our existing curriculum." They go on to say, "We are trying to work within the existing system to change it completely." With a new board and new superintendent, the district has an opportunity to address this issue by setting a higher standard for how professional development is selected to ensure they are aligned with the district's priority and policy on ensuring a respectful learning environment for all, including educators.
Ideas such as diversity, equity, inclusion, and critical race theory have been heavily invested in by the district, and while they sound nice at the surface level, they're anything but nice. The idea of oppressor-oppressed is core in these ideologies, and how is that supposed to play out amongst my 3 children? I typically don't get into the demographics of my family, but it's key for this discussion. Our oldest daughter is an Ethiopian immigrant. Our middle is a blonde-haired, blue-eyed white daughter, and our youngest is an American-born Black son. So I ask you, with these ideas of DEI and CRT, is my white daughter the oppressor because she's white? How about my Black son because he's male? Should my black children view each other suspiciously because of the differences between African immigrants and American-born blacks? Should my black kids get preferential treatment because of their
10
skin
seconds.
color? This all sounds shocking and even laughable, but that's what it comes down to as a family. And if it doesn't work in a family, it doesn't work in the school.
I believe that the board and the members of the public need to be aware of the fact that much of the testimony you might be hearing tonight in support of DEI initiatives has been organized by staff members of the district through the district's PACRI group, run by the district's DEI coordinator. So it's come to my attention that this group has scripted the comments that are being read by volunteers to make the case for not making any cuts to the DEI programming. Notably, one of the most significant budget line items for DEI programming is the high-paid position. So how is this appropriate that a district staff member oversees and seemingly executes an effort that uses district resources to organize parents against district leadership? It's simple. It's not appropriate.
We all agree that all students, teachers, and staff should be respected. But the district should respect values and beliefs of all community, including faith community, without promoting any particular viewpoints. This district needs to understand many in the community, including us Muslim community, do not want to think things like their children being required to provide their pronouns or say what their sex assigned at birth is, which is happening at our school. Asking those questions is direct violating our students' religious beliefs. Also, we want staff hiding a gender transition from parents. It is 100% happening as teachers and nurses told us. In the school buildings, there are transgender, rainbow, and other political flags and signs all over the classrooms and hallways. There are some assignments and books that present vulgar, inappropriate sexual context that do not belong in
10
schools.
seconds.
Parents should not need to tell you this is completely inappropriate for kids.
Spending continues to increase in the district while academics are failing. There are political flags all over our schools. Only one flag is needed. The American flag covers all of us. Immigrants, blacks, white, us natives. These things are causing more distractions. They also teach racial biases and views that one race is an oppressor to all. We're a proud Native American and LGBT family, and I don't want my kids taught they're oppressed beings. This is damaging to their self-esteem. I teach them they can do anything they set their mind to with some hard work. I've heard of minority kids giving white kids their Venmo accounts for reparations. This is absolutely ridiculous. We have increased violence in our schools, and many incidents have been stemming from race wars. Race relations have gotten worse under these new DEI, CRT, SEL, or whatever name you want to call them. They are racist. Why are our teachers given trainings about decentering whiteness? How is this inclusive to all? The focus should be on shared humanity and kindness, not division and promoting only certain views. I don't want my kids asked their pronouns. I don't want adults talking to my kids about sexual identity and preferences. This is completely inappropriate in a school. I can't believe we have to argue that. Considering half of our kids are below standard for reading, science, and math, maybe you need to ditch that nonsense and focus on, academics. Instead, the solution was more diversity curriculum and standard-based grading that has brought our brightest students down.
This board should be aware that transformational programs under the CASEL framework closely align with legal definitions of religion. As such, Character Strong's was the subject of a recent lawsuit in which plaintiffs successfully argue that Character Strong's program provide instructions that violate Student First and 14th Amendment rights. It is clear not just to parents but the court that Character Strong is not just about having morning meetings and kindness. It is in fact a tool for fundamentally changing the beliefs and mindsets of young children. My child has started expressing really specific viewpoints that are in congruence with our family's teachings and value, which is both surprising and alarming. I did not know that my child was being subjected to a program with religious characteristics that is designed to create transformational change in her. And I certainly didn't consent to it.
The district has been partnering since 2018 with the Midwest and Plains Equity Assistance Center, a division of the Great Lakes Equity Center. So the few action items in the plan that are tied to a quantifiable result have not advanced. So objectively, by these measurements, the district has declined, not improved, under this plan. For the many unquantifiable items, such as develop relationships or find ways to support, how will the district know when they have achieved success with those vague goals? How will parents and community members be informed about our investment of time and money? How does the district pay? How much do they pay for ongoing partnership in this for-profit business? Does a parent have to submit a data practice request to obtain some of this information? Disturbingly, a fellow parent did submit a data practice request regarding curriculum. program. And after 2 years, they received documents from the district. And notably among these was a 2021 staff presentation from the Great Lakes Equity Center. It is littered with offensive, racist, and regressive statements focused on whites being oppressive, noting white people's economic, professional, and personal success is tied to their power and domination. And white persons cannot avoid internalizing the message of white supremacy.
10 seconds.
Are declining student achievement and provoking race-based conflicts what Anoka-Hennepin wants to partner with?
Over the past 18 years, I have had 3 sons in the public schools in Anoka-Hennepin school districts. Unfortunately, I've seen a decline in the emphasis on the very attributes I'm looking for when I'm hiring potential employees at my company. The real world does not allow for missed deadlines, tardiness, attitudes that work can just be redone or fixed later. Companies must also reach goals within financial budgets. If goals are not met within these budgets, changes are made or people are let go. It scares me that we are willing to lower the standards for our students versus steering the use of our available funding to drive academic results to a standard that should just stay constant. It's part of the obligation to make sure that all of our children have an equal opportunity to become accountable, hardworking, intelligent young adults that can contribute positively to our community. It's good to challenge where limited funds are spent to ensure that there's a return on investment and that desired outcomes are achieved.
I'm probably the only one in this room that attended an all-black school in inner city New York, then later attended an all-black school in rural Oklahoma, and then bused to an all-white school all before 6th grade. I worked my way through college. I pledged in the very first black fraternity, Alpha Phi Alpha, the same fraternity as Martin Luther King, as the same fraternity as Thurgood Marshall, the first black Supreme Court justice. I say all this because even through all of that public school education, I learned all I needed to know about the Ku Klux Klan, redlining, the institution of slavery, and also I learned it from my parents who lived through the Jim Crow South. Now I speak as a direct descendant of American black slaves. Here's what I can say about black students in Anoka-Hennepin County as well as in Minnesota as a whole. Our ancestors going all the way back to Frederick Douglass, Booker T. Washington, Harriet Tubman, and even the slaves sold on the auction blocks. They would be appalled that nearly 60% of black students in Anoka-Hennepin County cannot read at 10th grade level. They would also be appalled that 70% of them are not competent at math at grade level.
I have 7 grandkids, 6 currently in the school system. I also have LGBTQ friends and minority friends, and I listen to what they tell me, and it sometimes is pretty disturbing. I believe that the policies that we're talking about here are disrespectful and politically motivated. And I say that because I believe you're teaching people how to be weak. You're teaching people how to not see the American dream and work for it. I'd like to see you teach strengths on how to be successful. Right now, the performance of students coming through the school system is nothing to brag about. And so you're focusing on the wrong stuff. And what I'm going to ask you to do is teach strength. Teach things that make kids stronger. Teach them how to be successful and realize the American dream. Don't teach them how to be weak and shelter them because you don't think they can make it. They can. The LGBTQ community, the minority community, they're smarter than you're giving them credit for. And I think what you need to do is integrate them, not segregate them. Teach them how to be strong and teach them to realize the American dream.
As a parent here in the district, some 36 years now, I've noticed and felt an increased, what feels like indoctrination within the school systems happening. I would like to be a voice to contend for truth. Truth is what sets us free. As we seek to indoctrinate particular ideology, it can take us down the wrong trails. I simply want to contend for the possibility that we get back to strongly encouraging and equipping our youth in the area of academics. We are living in a more diverse culture today, and we're grateful for the creation that God has made in all different peoples. That was His plan, but let's be careful about the indoctrination that has been on the rise and increasing and is causing a lot of rift, I believe, among us.
I have a friend who prepared some comments tonight, and she had some things to take care of, so I'm just going to read this from her perspective. I live in the district, but pulled my kids and currently homeschool. I have no plans on returning until I see significant change within the district. The district has a transparency problem. The school's lawyers have made the process to receive data exceptionally hard for average parents by making them One, physically come in to review the data. If that's not possible, then two, telling them the cost estimate is upwards of $100 to $140 per keyword. So the process is hard intentionally. What parent has time, money, or energy to put into this? In addition to all of that, the school's lawyers don't follow the law in distributing data in a quote unquote reasonable timeframe. I think the entire board, the superintendent, any average citizen, and likely a judge would agree that 2 years is an exorbitant amount of time to gather data and not particularly reasonable. I've only looked into one keyword and didn't even get through it all, and the data is very concerning. Teachers mocking conservative students and parents with other students and teachers in group chats. Literacy coaches who focus on social justice rather than literacy. Teaching and learning specialists who focus on either directly or indirectly on settler colonialism and critical race theory. And the district-wide use of the catalyst approach, which has, quote, an identity wheel and racism and inequity vocabulary. This was just from one data request with one keyword. It's clear from my experience retrieving the data and the data itself that there's a transparency problem and an activist problem within the district. The board needs to do something about this, as the administration has failed and are often complicit.
I would like to urge the entire board to be better than what we witnessed at the state level at the end of the Minnesota legislative session. Be an example of good constituent-focused governance by agreeing to bring transparency, accountability, and the proper oversight needed to restore the focus to student achievement. Our kids deserve this. If the school district's leadership is proud of what's going on in our schools, there should be no fear of transparency.
Anybody who pays their property taxes separately knows what this pink envelope is. My husband and I live in a pretty modest 2-bedroom townhouse. Our annual property taxes are about $3,500. Of that, about $1,200 goes to the Anoka-Hennepin School District. We pay that every year, whether we have children in the district or not, and we're happy to pay if we see results. But the problem is the test scores for our district have not been up to par. I just want to encourage people, make note of your property taxes, and are you getting value?
I'm the parent of 3 children, 2 of whom are currently enrolled in Anoka High School. First and foremost, I'd like to recognize that it is in our collective best interest that Anoka-Hennepin schools operate in a manner that provides a highly educated future population for our region. Additionally, as property owners facing an ever-increasing tax burden, it is of extra importance that our investment in local schools is in line with sound fiscal policy. My wife and I are here today to speak in support of board members who are proposing to rein in some of the district's most recent efforts to fund initiatives that are outside of what most would consider basic education. We support funding for the school district's building and maintenance needs, funding for teacher and administrative compensation, and reasonable funding for extracurricular activities. We object to funding for any initiatives related to moral formation, race relations, sexuality, gender, or any content that is outside of basic subject instruction. We as parents are well equipped to provide our children with moral formation at home, just as Anoka-Hennepin Schools is well equipped to provide students with basic education in class. There is no doubt that the teachers and staff care deeply about their jobs and their students' performance. The next budget should allocate proper funding for basic instruction and competitive teacher compensation while making the best use of tax revenues that we as citizens are providing.
I often tell my kids that sometimes we get the chance to do hard things. So the hard thing I'm asking the school board to consider tonight is this. Listen to the feedback you've been hearing from the community about ideology that is strongly opposed to so many families in our district and what they teach at home. Focus our taxpayer dollars instead on things we can be united around, boosting academic performance, special ed funding, school safety. There's all kinds of things that we can agree on. Reasonable people can disagree on the fine print of how to fund all these things, but these broad categories are far from controversial.
Unfortunately, in the last several years, the decisions that have been made are not educating children. Nearly 50% of the children can't pass basic tests. Today, I'm here to say that I'm not getting my money's worth as a taxpayer. If this were an investment, I'd have pulled out long ago. However, I'm not allowed to stop paying my taxes without serious consequences. Instead, I must come here and tell you that I'm not getting my money's worth. I want to see children educated, even though I don't have any children in the district anymore. The next time I come, I might be as bold as to ask for a refund. My money isn't being spent wisely in this endeavor of education, and I want a better return on my investment.